Hi, everyone. So today I want to think about our classroom libraries from the perspective of our teachers, right? Books are our greatest tools, but only if we can get our hands on what we need when we need it. And right now, depending on whether you are able to go back in your classroom or not, even if you were, sometimes it was for like 15 minutes. It was all about like, what could I grab? I can almost envision next year a TV reality show where teachers are given 10 minutes to go in their classrooms and figure out all the things that they're going to be able to grab. Um, I think that's a shout out to Melanie Meehan. I think she was the person who was we were thinking about that with after she had to do that. So not everybody has everything they need, and they don't have it where they need it, and they don't have it organized in a way that's helping them. And so as we begin to think about this idea of a virtual classroom library and what like the community needs in your classroom for what like the teacher needs and what the students want, and then from like a student perspective for what they need for their independent reading, then we begin to think about how could we curate for teachers kind of the tools they're going to need as mentor text and read aloud, so that they aren't spending hours trying to figure out what they need, and like working together, working smarter, and trying to figure out how we can lift each other up and support each other, because I do think we're going to be stronger together through all this. So here's what I've been trying with some teachers that I wanted to share and start to think about, like, what can we do together. So again, I'm working mostly in Google Docs because that's the teachers I'm collaborating with are in Google Docs. I think this could be Padlet. I think this could be Pinterest. I think this could be Flipgrid. I think there's a lot of ways that you could organize this. I think you've got to sort of take a step back, look at what we're doing, and then figure out how to create it in whatever platform you're using. But we did this one in Google Docs, which for me was not my natural. I think I would have went straight to a Padlet on this, but I'm getting it more now and learning a ton. So within this virtual classroom library, right, so let's take a look at that one again. Again, this was made just, in a Google Doc, which in the first segment of this, I sort of talked about, we surveyed kids, we thought about what teachers needed, and we created, if this were a library, baskets with virtual books and virtual text in there. They could be digital, they could be infographics, they could be images, they could be recordings, all kinds of things in there. But we also want to take some of those out and think about using them for our read alouds and our mentor text. So I'm going to use two teaching teams that I've been collaborating with. A couple of them are really working on character studies, whether they're in 3rd or 4th grade, and some are working on theme studies. So they're going to go and study narrative. They feel like narrative's pretty comfortable to their kids. They started that at the beginning of the year. They're going to go back to that conversation, but begin to think about it with more flexibility, more depth, more breadth, and getting kids having more agency and independence in the work. So what we began to think about is, again, if we're going to be doing, for example, a theme study, our standards tell us we need to explore a theme with our kids, but they don't tell us what themes they want. So having conversations with kids and surveying kids and letting kids give us an idea, like, what kinds of books are you in the mood for? What themes do you want to dig into? Now, some kids have already experienced this unit earlier in the year. So if you had some books that they already experienced, then I would definitely add those, because I think starting with what's familiar is going to just gel your community again and really get them back to remembering like the work you were doing, not just in terms of standards, but also as your community. And that's really important. So that would be one way to go. We also thought about what are some things they just might be thinking about now, because I think a lot of us, our heads are in places they have never been before. And then we also talked to kids and saw what they were interested in. We noticed where our conversations were going in our initial read alouds over the first couple weeks, saw what they were kind of in the mood for, and also allowed that to kind of guide us in the kinds of books we curated for theme studies. And then inviting kids to sort of read lots and choose, but maybe in a week or so, choose one that they want to explore with some other kids. So we picked some things like Family Matters. I think all of us are spending a lot more time with our family than we're used to. Books Looking at the Bright Side. Saturday came immediately to mind for me, because because we're all kind of need to look at the bright side right now. Social distancing got you down, thinking about friendships and who we miss and what it means to be a friend. Thinking outside the box. I think creativity is kind of important right now, and kids might want to explore some books about people who are fictional and people in real life who kind of thought outside the box and created during a time when things were hard. Bravery. I think kids are hearing a lot about heroes and people who are doing things that are brave. And so to read about bravery and what does it mean to have courage. Never giving up. Again, I think this is something kids are probably hearing a lot about and having to think about. So picking some books that might explore that, both fiction, nonfiction, poetry. I'm thinking of lots of different structures. Characters who make a difference or making a difference, and exploring some books that have that theme. Choosing kindness. I think really thinking about what we can do to take care of other people is really important right now. And then leaving some open for ones to emerge or to come up with. So these were just some we started to think about. So again, I just took pictures of a book that I thought reminded me of that theme and put it there for kids to kind of get the idea that this is going to be a basket. You don't need to do that step. I think you could just put the word there and maybe a book. It's totally up to you. It didn't take me long. I used the same basket. I just kept putting a book in front of it, to be totally honest with you. It took me 2 seconds, but we can talk about how to get this work done easily in a minute. So for one of these, I sort of showed what I was envisioning. Again, making a digital bin. A digital bin is simply a Google Doc that exists in cyberspace. It exists in some platform where everyone who's going to access it can access that. So it could be right on your Google Classroom, because that's a platform that everyone can access in your class. And then when they hit that link, it will bring them to what I call a digital bin. And within that bin, you could have lots of different things. So I have Peter's Chair, Blackout, Sophia Martinez, and Mallory's Guide to Boys, Brothers, Dads, and Dogs. These were just some I picked. Some are more picture books in short text. Some are longer. I used Get Epic for these, but again, there's all different ones you could use. You could also put in, your reading aloud. You could put in lots of different ways to do this. But these would be the mentor texts that you're using as a teacher. So I mostly used ones that you were going to be able to read it to your kids. It also really helps you because so many teachers are trying to figure out whether they have a document camera or making a document camera or screencasting. If you use a book that's digitally available, then you can be doing what I'm doing right now, right? You could be looking at this book with your kids. You can turn the audio off and you could be reading this with them, or you could be here
Peter's Chair,
listening it and stopping it, right? If we go along.
My high chair, whispered Peter. He saw his crib and muttered, my crib. It's painted pink too.
Right, so you could hear that book. You might also put the visuals to it as well. So thinking about how you're going to get some books that you want kids to hear and to think about. If I were listening to that, I could be showing it right in that way, or you could have kids explore some on their own as well. So these would be an example of helping teachers get some mentor text to study theme. Each of these would be hyperlinked, and then you'd be able to have some books that kids could explore. You could also have digital clips. You could have infographics and images, anything you want to have that. Here's an example of one for a character study. Let me go back to this for 1 minute. Sorry. So again, these all exist in the same folder. Eileen Sprague taught me that if you make a digital folder, that everything in that folder will follow the same permissions. So it just helps you know. So if I'm using different kinds of permissions with different people or different schools, then I just make sure that permissions matches what I want. So I can take everything that's in a folder, create a new folder that's private, and share something. Like if I were to share this, I might share it private with all of you so that you can see how I did it, but that you can't access it and change it. But if I'm sharing it with a school district, I might give them the rights to edit it, and then they may make it private for their kiddos. So that was really helpful to me when I learned that. So that's something for you to think about. So I hyperlinked Laugh Out Loud. Again, you would hyperlink all of these, but just to give you an example of some of the books I found that I put in there: Adventure of Tabby Towers, Funny Bones, The Mixed Up Chameleon, Diamante Daniel, right? Just Horrid Henry, just some great books to sort of think about and to get kids to try out. So just to link on one so you can see how that might look. Once they click it, again, they can listen to it or they can read it, right? Depending on how you set it up for them. Let's see if we can find another one. Mixed Up Chameleon, an oldie but a goodie. Right, so if you choose you want to see it, you have to say want to read. And you have to email. For this one, you have to set this up for your kids so that they're able to be on this. So I put this one like this so you could see. You're going to have the kids logged in so that they have a membership so they're able to use it for Open Library for that one. Let's see how this one works. Right, so this one is a book. And kids can go ahead and read it, right, as they're going along. And then decide.
Grab.
Right, so some are books that you might read aloud to kids, some are books that kids are putting in, but for your units of study, right, for your mentor text, you're gonna think about books you might read aloud, books they may read. Kids can also start to add books to these baskets for them to read and explore as well, because there's going to be some that you're using for your read aloud and for your lessons, but we also want to allow them to start to build that section of your classroom library as well with you. Again, most of this work teachers aren't doing on their own. We're trying to work together, sometimes partnering with literacy specialists across a district. We're all taking a grade level and we're creating these together. We might all take 2 baskets per person that's working on it. And we're getting teachers started with a few books that are in there with the hopes that teachers will then also start adding some books, what books they have at home. They can video themselves reading them aloud. Kids could start adding them. But I think working together, everyone shouldn't be making these on their own. This is like perfect teamwork, or even cross-district work at a grade level, that this doesn't need to be made by every individual person. It's going to take too long. We have to figure out how to work together to make this happen. If you're working with an external person like myself, they could certainly help you do this, because I've been helping people do this. I could just make the digital bin and send it to them, and they can link it and put it right into their intranet, even though I'm not part of that. So these are ideas. I do want to make sure that we're supporting our kids and we are supporting our teachers, right? And what teachers need, because I do think we want to remember that we want to have a virtual classroom library, and within a classroom library, we have a lot of sections, right? We have sections that are really going to be for independent reading, for what our kids want to read. Our kids also, some of our kids are also looking at leveled text, and not that we're leveling the kids, but we are thinking about complexity within our classroom library. And then we also want to make sure we have sections that are supporting the curriculum that we're doing and the work that we're doing as teachers. And that's kind of what I'm visualizing for these mentor text sections within your classroom library. So again, I hope you are well. I hope this is helpful, and I can't wait to hear what you try and how you're learning with this, as I think together we're gonna make our work stronger, and we're gonna get access to our kids so that all of our kids have the abilities to read and to write and to author their own reading and writing lives during this time when we're not together. Take care, everyone.